It could be said, but that's okay. You're president of the Montgomery County Education Association, which sounds like an association, but actually is a union. Is that right?
That is, yep. It's the teachers union for Montgomery County.
11,000 teachers?
Almost 12,000. It's all the teachers
Almost
plus
12, wow.
all certificated employees. So it includes social workers, psychologists, there's folks who work for the school system.
Well, I thought we'd start out easy with you on what the Education Association is doing in Montgomery County by reading a Washington Post editorial.
That's an easy way to start, I guess.
Which accuses you of political thuggery and some other things. But I thought if I just said political thuggery, that would kind of set the tone. The editorials have complained that you're trying to fight budget balancing issues of furloughs, and that you're intimidating public officials who are running for office and giving them money for their the candidates giving you money instead of you giving candidates money for campaigns. So your response to that. And welcome.
Thank you.
I know you're glad you came in.
There you go. The Post's editorials about our political operation, I think, missed the mark, which is that we are committed to working with politicians who support public education. And we
so-called Apple ballot.
The Apple ballot, correct. And we started a new process in terms of informing the public who we're recommending for office, both at state and local level. 4 years ago, what we started was a coordinated campaign. So politicians gave money to us in order to more effectively get the message out to voters of who we're supporting. No one was coerced. No one's arm was twisted. We asked politicians if they were interested. If they were, they gave us money. If they weren't, they didn't give us money. Everyone who we recommended for office got the publicity regardless. But a lot of politicians believe that this was a more efficient use of their money. It got to more voters more quickly. And I think, the Post allegations completely missed the mark. So we're not leaning on it.
How many candidates appear on an Apple ballot? I mean, how many candidates do you endorse in say in 08?
In 08, it was 47.
And of the 47, how many of the 47 gave money to the coordinated campaign?
I believe all but 2 did.
Okay, so there's a correlation there between who gets endorsed and the sort of...
The money comes after the endorsement, right?
Correct, yeah. The entire endorsement process, it's actually we call it a recommendation process. That all happened prior to the coordinated campaign even starting. None of the candidates were asked for money until actually months after we finished our recommendation
How many of the 47 won? Something like 42?
42, correct.
That's a pretty good batting average.
It was pretty good, yep.
And the Orioles could use.
Yes, they could. Nats are doing better, though.
The big issue in Montgomery County, at least one big issue that everyone has seen from out and around the metro area, is the budget crisis. It's not a crisis; it's a complete meltdown.
It's a catastrophe.
It's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Some of the workers I think the plan is for them to take 2-week furloughs, and you have to give back money. I think you gave back money last year in terms of wages. But you're resisting a furlough for teachers this time around. What's that about?
That's correct. Well, we think that the circumstances are so different between what the work is on the county government side and the school system itself, and the work circumstances of the folks both in my unit and the other 2 units within the school system, the administrators and support staff, are such that it doesn't make sense to try to furlough folks. We also think, quite honestly, that there are ways to fix the budget without furloughing anyone, and that's what we've advocated for.
Cut somebody else? So it's what?
Well, there's a bunch of different moving parts within the budget process. There's the reserve fund, which we believe could be a little bit lower than it's set right now. That would free up enough money, if they do that, to avoid furloughing any of the employees in the county government or the school system as well. And we also think that because of the school year itself and the limited number of days students have and teachers have to do the teaching and learning, the instructional days are mandated by state law, so we can't really dip into that. And the other days are days that teachers need to get ready for school, to prepare, to plan, get their rooms ready.
A lot of people don't believe that. They think it's just free time for the teachers. Is it really that onerous?
Actually, it is. Teaching is the most complex job that I know of. Matter of fact, there was a study years ago that showed that the only job that has more frequent decision-making and more consequential decision-making than teaching is air traffic controller. So it's an incredibly difficult, complex job. You have to address the needs of every student in your classroom. And increasingly, both in Montgomery County and around the country, teachers work together. You don't go in your classroom and close the door and do your job and then leave. You're talking with other teachers, you're talking with paraprofessionals, you're talking with special educators. So folks need the time to be able to get ready. If the pre-service days, which we call them the 5 days before school begins, were cut into, it would affect the quality of instruction. There's just no way around it.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, though, in Montgomery County, there's a lot of people who do important jobs. Let's say social workers, for instance.
Yep.
Social workers do important work, and
firefighters,
police
cops,
officers. Sure. They're going to be taking furloughs, and teachers won't.
Okay.
And so your position is that the job of teacher is different from all those other jobs.
Yes. And also, quite honestly, as I said, that we don't think it's necessary to furlough anyone. So we're not supporting furloughs for county workers and not ourselves. We're opposed to furloughs across the board.
Well, every government across the country, local, state, not to mention the national government drowning in red ink, but every government is having to cut back. Thousands of Ward 6 council member Tommy Wells was on the show, sat right where you are last week, and said, we were talking about 115 employees in the Child and Family Services Division being fired the day before. He said, well, that's just the beginning. We're going to have to get rid of hundreds of workers. Would you rather, if you don't furlough people, maybe there will have to be staff cuts?
Well, I think on the school system side,
let's use you didn't spend reserve money, but that won't solve your problem next year.
No, it won't. But furloughs also don't solve the problem for next year either. I mean, the money that you would save by furloughs goes back in the budget for the following year. So that's also a short-term solution in the same way that cutting into the reserve fund slightly is a short-term solution.
Maryland has no money. Montgomery County has no money.
That's true. I mean, and one of the other aspects to this is that by cutting the school system further and furloughing its employees or suggesting that it could be done, because only the Board of Education actually has the authority to furlough school system employees, not the county council. The other piece of play here is that we're applying for a waiver from the state's maintenance of effort law.
Right. And
if that waiver is not granted by the State Board of Education, Montgomery County risks losing $51.3 million in additional state aid to education. That's a huge chunk of change.
And explain, people have heard some news maybe on a commercial radio station or saw some briefly in the newspapers in the Gazette or something in Montgomery County. The superintendent, Jerry Weiss, is thinking about suing the county if they cut the budget anymore. What is that? Can you succinctly tell us what that's about?
There's a provision in the state charter that where there are counties where a county executive and a county council exist, that the county council, which is the funding agency, cannot cut the school system budget any further than what the county executive has appropriated in his budget. And so that would be the basis of a lawsuit if it were to happen. We hope, and the school system hopes, that that's not necessary. We hope that we'll be able to reach an agreement